Hello everyone, welcome to our podcast series, Stories of a Lifetime, Timeless Tales, Endless Inspiration. This series explores the journeys and stories of older adults, painting a vivid picture of their golden years. Our goal is to bridge the gap between generations, offering motivation and inspiration to deepen our appreciation of their experiences and wisdom. I am Lirisha Tuladhar, a graduate student in Miami University, and I am thrilled to present our new episode. Today, we have the honor of speaking with Kate, our remarkable 65-year-old who will share her incredible journey in living in Oxford for almost more than 30 years and being a professor in the Miami University. Our guest, Kate, loves to bicycle, do water aerobics in pool, and is fully retiring in August after a wholesome 32 years since 1992. So we welcome you, Kate, to our show and our episode.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. So how about, did I miss something in your introduction that you'd like to add?
Sure, I'll tell you. I'm Kate Rousmaniere. I'm 65 years old. I moved to Oxford in 1992 in order to get a job at Miami University. So for 32 years, I've been a professor in the Department of Educational Leadership in the College of Education, Health, and Society at Miami University. It's been a great 32 years. It's been a great job.
Wow, 32 years is a long time. So how did you come to Oxford and what made you choose to come to Oxford?
I got a job here, which is a great reason to come somewhere. So I got my PhD in New York City and applied for jobs, and there was a job at Miami University and I applied for it and I said, yeah, sure, I'll go there. Sounds fine. I was interested in going out to the Midwest to a new job, and the department ended up being wonderful. It's been a great ride. Yeah. And then, I'll just keep going a little bit here. I was involved in the department for about 10 years, and then I became department chair for another 10 years. So I was chair of the department, which got me very involved in university work, university senate work, and I was on a lot of committees and did a lot of sort of university administration. And then I stopped being department chair, and the next day, Prue Dana, who is the former mayor of Oxford, took me out to lunch and invited me to run for city council. She said, you should run for city council now. And I said, oh, can I take a year off because I just stopped being department chair? And she said, no, you've got to run now. So I ran for Oxford City Council and was on that position for 8 years. And I was mayor of Oxford for the last 4 years of that, for 2 terms. So essentially I was very involved in the university, and then I kind of turned my attention to the city and spent a lot of time being involved in the city, and as a result of that got involved in a lot more community organizations.
Wow, so that means you know Oxford inside and out,
Yes.
all of it.
Yeah, I do.
So we'd like to know more about the secrets and great achievements and transitions from Oxford since the past 30 years.
When I don't know if I have any great secrets, but when I first moved here, I was lonely and young and single, and I was just trying to find friends. So I started a reading group for women, local women, and the people in that reading group ended up being university folks and community folks.
Wow.
I don't know how I found the community folks. I think literally I grabbed them at Kroger. I think I went to Kroger and saw someone who looked interesting, and I said, hey, you want to join a reading group? So we joined a reading group. That was probably my first community venture, and it was interesting to have university and townspeople together on that.
So you started the reading group in Oxford?
In Oxford, right. It was right here in Oxford. A lot of the faculty on the group lived in Cincinnati, and so sometimes we met in Cincinnati. And it was the first time I began to notice tension, tension between people who live in Oxford and people who live outside of Oxford. I really liked Oxford. I liked the fact that I was with local people who worked 9-to-5 jobs in Oxford, not necessarily at the university. It was really interesting to me. But sometimes the university folks were like, they only came to Oxford maybe twice a week, and so they had to work their schedule around it, and that was kind of complicated.
So how would you describe that tension?
A lot of it was scheduling. Like university folks, a lot of university faculty then, and probably more so now, only come to campus like twice. They come to Oxford twice a week. And it's a long drive for them, like an hour drive. So it was hard for them to come to Oxford. And then I had this group of Oxford people who live here and who work 9-to-5 jobs, and they had their own schedules. So a lot of it came down to scheduling, but it was also some tension just in terms of sort of who had more rights, you know.
The city people are the ones from outside.
Right. And it was an introduction to like the university, the town gown tension between university folks who only think about Miami University. They only think about Oxford in terms of Miami University, and townspeople who think of Oxford as their town.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Being a college town, it is different. It is very difficult, I guess, to differentiate between if it's only the college students that's focused on, or there are other people as well.
Yeah, and I found when I was in local government and then got involved in a lot of community organizations that a lot of university people really didn't know that there was a town out there. You know, they didn't realize that they could be involved in the League of Women Voters, or Oxford Seniors, for example, or Age-Friendly Oxford, or a lot of the other organizations that were going on in the community. They did not realize those things were there because they only came to town twice a week.
Oh, I see. So how would you describe that the transitions have been made 30 years before and now?
30 years ago, there were not many organizations for people to be involved in. And since then, I've been really happy to be involved in organizations like Oxford Seniors. Oxford Seniors existed 30 years ago, but I didn't really know about it. The League of Women Voters, the Oxford Area League of Women Voters is a great organization. The Family Resource Center and TOPS, the food pantry, and the Coalition for Healthy Communities, which is a university, town, school district partnership that helps on community health initiatives in the community. And then there have been other new organizations like the Moon Co-op, the organic food co-op that opened up about 20 years ago. That's just a great place to go to and meet people. So I found there are a lot more places to meet people now than there were when I first showed up.
These organizations were there when you came, but they were not so functional.
Some of them were there and not so functional or not so public, or I just didn't know about them. And if I have advice to anybody who moves to Oxford now, I would say reach out to some of those organizations. Like I wish when I first moved here 32 years ago and I was sitting alone in my living room wondering if I'd ever make any friends, I wish that I'd reached out to the League of Women Voters and gotten involved in some community work. That organization existed, but partially because we didn't have internet then, it was hard for me to know how it existed. I think social media has allowed us to learn more about each other.
That's fascinating. So what would you say would be some of the most significant changes that you've seen and you're proud of in Oxford?
I'm really proud of some of the healthy initiatives in Oxford. As mayor and on city council, we work to develop some of these recreation trails that you'll see being built around Oxford. And those are really great. I think Miami students, high school students, and community members of all ages use those recreation trails. It's an initiative of the city of Oxford, funded by local grants, and it's just provided some great opportunities for people to get out into the beautiful nature. And they did not exist when I first moved here 32 years ago. You could go to Houston Woods.
Yeah, so you could say there's a natural beauty in Oxford as well.
Yes, lots of natural beauty and ability to go out and engage in it now through those recreation trails. And also the community park. I live pretty near the community park. When I first moved here, I lived farther away from the community park, and I didn't really know the community park existed. But now I go there as much as I can on my bicycle or walking, and the new aquatic center is there, which is fantastic. So I go there as often as I can too.
Okay, that sounds interesting. So you did touch a little bit on the social life, but can you explain a bit more of the changes or some cultural trends that you have seen, some social insights?
I think social media has helped. I'm normally not a big fan of social media because I think it's got its problems, but in a lot of ways it's allowed us to improve communication with each other and learn about other organizations. So we learn more about other groups that are going on and other things that are happening. For example, Lane Public Library, which also is a new organization. It existed when I first moved here, but it was uptown in an old building. And then a few years ago, it moved to this fabulous new building in right across from Kroger.
Yeah.
And it is so wonderful to go there. And those folks send out great media posts about the things that they're doing and the activities they have. And they also support a lot of community ventures that I'm engaged in. So, yeah, I think social media has actually helped connect us. Even though we're a small town, I found it pretty alienating when I moved here. I just didn't know how to meet people, how to reach out to people.
So as you have told that you felt alienated, so what are some of the challenges that you felt when you came here, and those challenges, have they overcome now, or do you think new people who come to Oxford would still face that?
I don't know. I hope they don't face that. I hope they would reach out and learn about other organizations. And then there are things like the Blue Shirt Bunch, which comes out of Age Friendly Oxford, which is a group of people who their goal is to be nice to people, which I love. I just love that, and to connect people, and the idea that you can like go uptown and go to the music festival on Thursday nights in the summer and actually meet somebody and talk to them and get engaged in the work that they're doing and sort of things that are going on around town. The fact that you could go to the farmers market on Saturday morning, which is also that farmers market has also grown quite a bit and become a great social place. So you can learn about all these things from that Blue Shirt Bunch. Yeah, it's a great idea.
So has the neighborhood you've been living in the same, or has it changed, or did you move from places since you first came here?
Yeah, that's a weird thing. So when I first moved here, I lived in the Mile Square. I lived right next to the rec center. And then that part of town, because of the building of the rec center, in part because of that, it became overrun by student rentals. And so I moved out to what we kind of call the suburbs of Oxford. And so in some ways that's a bad thing, and in some ways that's a good thing. The thing being that I think students and town residents live more apart from each other now. Many of us used to live in the Mile Square next to students, and now we're much more isolated and separated. That's a bad thing because we're much more isolated and separated from each other. It's a good thing though, because then when we're living in our own communities, students in their communities and town residents, local people in their communities, they get to know each other more. And we're sort of less, at least as residents, I'm a little less kind of obsessed with being frustrated with student like music and bad behavior and stuff. So I think we're more separate now, but I think in some ways that builds up the community, each of the communities that have been separated.
So how about the way students and local community used to interact when you first came here?
Yeah, when I first came here, students, I lived on a street with a lot of students, and it was pretty conflictual, really. You know, it was about noise and parties and stuff. And so I really didn't make an effort to reach out to people. Now I see more students in my community work. So at Oxford Seniors, there's some great students who are interning, graduate students and undergraduate students, and at TOPS and the Family Resource Center. And this town really can't function without student volunteer work and participation. This past spring, I met a student in one of my classes, an undergraduate student, who had met me at the Moon Co-op. I'd kind of forgotten that, but he met me. He was doing some kind of internship at the Moon Co-op, and so he met me then, and we talked, and he reminded me of that, and that was so great, because I otherwise would not have met this guy at all.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So, is there any specific memories that you would like to share with us?
My favorite memory of Oxford that I'll probably carry for the rest of my life was when I was mayor. I did a lot of biking around town. I still try to bicycle around town as much as possible. So I would bicycle around town, and every now and then there'd be someone on the sidewalk who would say, "Hey, Mayor Kate." And I thought, wow, this is so cool. This is like such a cool small town.
Popular.
Yeah, people knew. First of all, they knew I was mayor. They knew my name, and they felt comfortable calling out to me. I really like that. So it's a really friendly small town. I think we've gotten more friendlier as time has gone on too.
I bet they were surprised that the mayor is bicycling around the town.
I think so, yeah. Yeah, I think people think mayors are these distant, formal people, and being mayor of Oxford it's a community event. It was a community activity. You know, I was involved in the community. I met people. I went to some Boy Scout meetings and talked about being mayor, and went to a lot of ribbon cuttings, and met a lot of local businesses and stuff. So yeah, it's a community. It's part of being a community worker is being on city council and mayor. I loved it.
Yeah, when you were in as the city council, did you do some significant developments that was really memorable for you?
I think the main thing we did was begin to develop bicycle lanes.
Oh yeah.
So this was in the late 90s, early 2000s, and you think bicycle lanes, they were already happening in a lot of cities, but in Oxford it was still pretty new. And we had some conflict. I mean, there were some people who just didn't understand bicycle. Like, why do you need bicycles? Why don't you just drive a car? And there's also a problem with bicycle lanes. They take away on-street parking. So there's a conflict between bicyclists and cars in that way. But as time has gone on and people have become more used to bicycle lanes and to the recreation trail, I think they're more used to people bicycling and walking around town. And I think traffic flow has gotten better. Certainly people's health and the environment has gotten better. So that was probably my main initiative, try to get us moving on bicycle lanes. This was in the early, I guess it was in 2010 or 11. That was when I first got on city council.
So, since the last 30 years, how would you say about the diversity of people that has been living in Oxford?
The diversity of Oxford is interesting. There are a number of large, diverse populations that a lot of people don't pay attention to. There's one subsidized housing community.
Okay.
There at least one formally subsidized, and then a number of other high poverty areas in town. But they're sort of on the edge of town, and so people don't really pay attention to them. The people who really pay attention to that group are their local police and community organizations who are engaged with them. And there's also this huge international student population. And that group, I think, has become more prominent. I think Kroger's become a little more accessible to having international foods. And I think people are a little more accustomed to seeing people with international garb and practices in town. And that's good.
So Oxford is considered a little bit of a rural area in comparison to other places like New York from when you were before here. So how different do you find living in New York City area and Oxford?
Yeah, I moved here from New York City, which was pretty different, obviously. But in New York City, you also have your own neighborhoods. You have the people you know in your block and your building and stuff, and so that kind of still happens in a small town. I think one of the problems that a lot of people are concerned about is the absence of interesting restaurants and cultural events.
Oh, okay.
And we can do the best we can. We only have so much of a population here. The economy of Oxford is really challenging for restaurateurs because basically the population is cut in a third. It's a third smaller population during the summer and much of the winter. So I find it's probably really challenging for some of those businesses to show up here and try and offer better opportunity, more diverse opportunities for people. So that's a problem. Cincinnati's nearby, that's good. Dayton's nearby, that's good. And Hamilton, which is a smaller city nearby, has become a great city to visit too for different things.
So if I'm not wrong, Uptown was there when you came here with the restaurants and everything?
Yep, Uptown was there, and there were a lot less restaurants. There were a lot of empty spaces in Oxford Uptown, and there were some zoning changes through City Council that made it so there's more commerce up there, which is good. The challenge is that commerce tends to be student-oriented, and that makes it hard. Again, that goes back to that divide between students and community members. I think there's some places where students and community members are really never going to mix, like probably at restaurants and places uptown. But in other places we do mix, like in community organizations and in things like this, and in the Blue Shirt Bunch too.
So I've seen like the places like Houston Woods and places like that, they do community events, which especially in July 4th and other major celebrations. So was that here when you came back then as well?
Houston Woods was doing some stuff, but not as much. And the city of Oxford has reached out more and is doing a lot more community events too. So the city of Oxford has fireworks, and a lot of those events, like the Dog Days Uptown and things like that, are all city initiatives. The city's done a lot more to engage students and full-time residents in community activities and commerce in town, and that's been really great.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so there are surely more diverse international students and other people coming here for the university as well as living in Oxford. So what advice would you give for the new coming students who are considering to move here?
Right, if you just moved to Oxford, don't write off Oxford. There's a lot of really interesting stuff that's happening in Oxford, and you just have to look around for it. And I think it's easier to find it now. So a lot of those community events I talked about, or you ask the blue shirt bunch. That blue shirt bunch is they're the kind of people that you can sit down on a bench with them and just say, hey, I'm new here, I have no friends, what should I do? And they'll make suggestions, and I love that. I think that's like the best idea. So to try and reach out of your normal life habits, whether it be a student at Miami University or a faculty or staff at Miami University, and get engaged in the local community. That would be the best advice I'd give people.
Oh, okay. So looking back into 30 years in Oxford, what are some of the key lessons or insights you've gained that you'd like to pass on to our future generations?
I think that one about getting involved in the community and reaching outside of your comfort zone. I mean, you don't have to be mayor. You don't have to run for election or anything. You can just join. There are a ton of community groups where people are doing really interesting things on a kind of daily basis and connecting with other people and doing good and helping out each other and making friends. So I had this attitude also when I was a university faculty member of trying to encourage people to get involved in service work, like on committees. Some of these committees can be kind of boring, but even then you're meeting people. You're out of your comfort zone and you're meeting other people and doing interesting stuff. Like I have a friend who's on a church vestry, and it sounds hard sometimes for her, and yet she's engaged with other people and and talking about some of the things that the church can do that can help the community, and that is only good.
So what if some young generation wants to spend their weekend here in Oxford? What would you suggest?
Oh, I'd suggest going to Houston Woods or some of the recreation trails, or the community park, getting involved in a lot of the nature. I mean, nature is one of our real assets here. It's just fantastic. So getting involved in some of those activities. There's always enjoy Oxford always is posting things that are going on, like honey festivals and interesting things that are happening in town. So there's always some event going on in town. And just walking on those really beautiful trails is really nice. And there are nice restaurants and places to hang out in Oxford and in Hamilton, which is only about 20 minutes away, and Cincinnati as well. I mean, Oxford's a great place to sort of settle in, and then you can reach out from there. But also things are going on in Oxford that's really interesting.
Well, that sounds really interesting. So I'd also like you to tell a little bit more about this farmers market, so that in the weekend we can just enjoy Oxford.
Yeah, in the spring, summer, and fall, there's a farmers market in uptown Oxford that has become really a dynamic social event. And you can get breakfast there and fresh local fruits and vegetables, and you meet a lot of people. There's someone there selling soap and flowers and other really cool stuff. And it's jammed. I mean, there are a lot of people there. And it's become such a center that other things are happening there too. So the Coalition for Healthy Communities sponsors a free yoga in the park activity.
Oh, wow.
Right during the farmers market. So you can go to the farmers market, get your fruits and vegetables, and then have some yoga, spend an hour of free yoga right up there in uptown. It's just really, really nice. When I first moved here 30 years ago, there were two farmers markets, two smaller farmers markets, And there was a weird conflict between them. One was like an organic farmer's market, and one was the local farmer's market. And they had some strange political disagreement between them. So fortunately that's been resolved, and now we have one big farmer's market with a lot of local merchants there and just a lot of people. There's a lot going on there, and it happens Saturday morning, like I think 8 to about noon.
12, I think.
To 12, yeah. And the yoga in the park is at about 9. And it's just a great time to go uptown and sort of meet people and hang out. I love it.
So this farmer market is all about local people coming to sell in their products?
Yep, it's all local vendors. In the fall, I really love to go up and get some delicious apples from a local apple farm, and I get regular vegetables. There's some meat. There's organic meat. I think it's an organic farmer's market, so there's some organic meat there too. You can get a full meal there. And they also have some pastries, so you can also go up there and eat like an incredible pastry for breakfast once you get up there.
So even the farmer's market is a diverse farmer's market.
Yeah,
okay.
It's wonderful. Yeah,
sounds amazing. Wow, that was really a great experience for 30 years and even for the upcoming future generations who are gonna come here in Oxford. So thank you so much, Kate, for being in our show. I hope you enjoyed this episode, talking and reminiscing all your memories as well.
I did. Thanks a lot. It was really great to think about what a great place Oxford is, again, from a distance, while I'm still here.
Okay, so I guess our listeners are all very excited to explore Oxford and come here, whether they are in New York or some international places as well. So as we wrap up today's episode, I want to extend my sincere thank you to our guest, Kate. Your incredible journey and insights have truly been such a gift for all of us to know more about Oxford, and thank you for sharing your experiences as well as the wisdom with such openness and grace. And to all our listeners, thank you for joining us on Stories of Lifetime, Timeless Tales, Endless Inspiration. We hope you found Kate's story as inspiring as we did. So remember to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review and share it with your community. Until next time, I'm Lirisha Tuladhar, encouraging you to listen, learn, and connect with the stories that shape our lives. Thank you and take care.